She was not born into wealth. She came from no royal lineage, carried no riches, soldiers, or influence. She was simply an orphan, raised far from her homeland, living as a foreigner inside the greatest empire in the world. And even so, she was chosen. Not by chance, not only for beauty, but because God placed her silently behind the walls of a palace for a purpose that would change history. While kings toasted with golden cups and nobles plotted in secret, an invisible battle began to take shape. It would not be fought with armies, swords, or chariots, but with fasting, faith, and the courage to speak when remaining silent meant death. This is not just the story of a queen. It is the story of how God saved an entire people using the most unlikely person. The empire and the fall of a queen. In the days of King Xerxes, ruler of 127 provinces stretching from India to Ethiopia, the throne of Persia dominated the known world. To display his greatness, the king held an extravagant feast that lasted 180 days. Princes, officials, and generals enjoyed limitless wine and endless celebrations. After that, he held another feast, 7 days of celebration open to all the people of Susa. Meanwhile, Queen Vashti held a banquet for the women of the palace. But on the 7th day, drunk with pride and wine, Xerxes demanded that Vashti appear before his guests wearing her royal crown, simply for them to admire her beauty. She refused, and before the entire empire, the boldness of a woman wounded the pride of a king. Fearing that her example would spread among all the women, his advisors convinced the king to remove Vashti. A decree was sent to every province, in every language, stripping her of the throne. What no one saw was that God was moving pieces, the choosing of a new queen. Time passed, and the king's anger faded. His advisors suggested, "Gather the most beautiful young women of the empire so you may choose a new queen." And so it was done. Among the hundreds brought from every region was Hadassah, or, as she was known in Persia, Esther, a young Jewish orphan raised by her cousin Mordecai, who taught her to fear God and keep her identity hidden. Esther was taken to the palace under the care of Haggai, overseer of the women. Without demanding anything, without vanity, she gained favor immediately. God was with her. After months of preparation, her moment arrived. She entered with calmness and quiet strength, and Xerxes was captivated. He placed the royal crown on her head and declared Esther the new queen. Banquets were held, holidays declared, and gifts distributed. But no one knew who she really was, and no one imagined the role she would play in the fate of her people. The act that changed the kingdom. Mordecai, who served at the palace gate, once overheard 2 guards plotting to kill the king. He informed Esther, and she told Xerxes. The conspiracy was confirmed, the guards were executed, and the event was recorded in the royal chronicles. But Mordecai received no reward, just an overlooked note in a book. Meanwhile, a man named Haman, arrogant and manipulative, was promoted to a position of immense authority. Everyone was ordered to bow before him. Everyone, except Mordecai. Haman's rage ignited. When he learned Mordecai was Jewish, he planned not only his death, but the extermination of an entire people. Haman convinced the king to sign a decree authorizing the massacre of all Jews on a set day. The city fell into despair. Mordecai tore his clothes, covered himself with ashes, and cried out in the streets. When Esther heard, she sent a messenger. Mordecai then asked the unthinkable, that she go to the king and plead for her people. Esther hesitated. The law said that anyone approaching the king without being summoned would die, unless he extended the scepter. And it had been 30 days since she was called. Then Mordecai sent the words that echoed through centuries. Do not think that you will escape because you are in the palace. If you remain silent, deliverance will come from another place. But who knows? If you have not come to royalty for such a time as this. Those words awakened Esther. She replied, Gather all the Jews in Susa and fast for me for 3 days. Then I will go to the king. And if I must die, I will die. The turning point. On the 3rd day, Esther dressed in her royal robes and entered the palace. The king saw her and extended the scepter. She invited Xerxes and Haman to a banquet. During the meal, she revealed nothing. She only asked them to return the next day. That night, the king could not sleep. He ordered the royal records to be read, and there he found the forgotten account of Mordecai saving his life. Realizing he had never honored him, he asked, What has been done for Mordecai? Nothing, they answered. At that exact moment, Haman entered to request permission to execute Mordecai. Before he could speak, the king asked, What should be done for the man the king desires to honor? Thinking it was about himself, Haman described the greatest honor possible. Royal robes, the king's horse, a crown, a parade through the city. Xerxes replied, "Excellent. Do everything you said for Mordecai." Haman nearly collapsed. He was forced to lead his enemy through the streets, proclaiming his honor. His downfall had begun. Truth revealed. At the second banquet, the king insisted, "What is your request, Queen Esther?" With courage, she finally revealed, "I ask for my life, and the life of my people. We have been sold to destruction and death." Shocked, the king asked, "Who would dare do such a thing?" Esther pointed, "The enemy is this man, Haman." Xerxes stormed out in rage. Desperate, Haman threw himself onto Esther, begging for mercy. The king returned, saw the scene, and interpreted it as an offense. Haman was executed on the very gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. The deliverance. Although Haman was dead, the decree allowing the massacre was still law. Esther approached the king again. "How can I bear to see my people destroyed?" Xerxes allowed a new decree to be written, authorizing the Jews to defend themselves. The order spread through all provinces. When the appointed day came, the Jews strengthened, united, and now legally protected defeated their enemies. Victory spread through the empire. The day meant for destruction became a day of joy. And so the Feast of Purim was born, celebrating God's deliverance and the unexpected reversal he brought. Mordecai was exalted, becoming the second most powerful man in Persia. Yet his heart remained the same, seeking the good of his people and speaking words of peace. The meaning of the story. Even without mentioning God's name, the story of Esther reveals his presence in every detail. In the silences, in the delays, in the coincidences that are not coincidences. What was meant for destruction, God turned into salvation. And the story of Esther reminds us, even when God seems silent, he is working. Even when circumstances seem impossible, he has already prepared the way. Perhaps you too are exactly where you are for such a time as this. Not by accident, but by divine purpose. The God who reversed the fate of a nation still writes stories of redemption today, and the next one may be yours.